Hi, I'm Angela Fazio, and today the training that we're going to do has to do with people. So we're all in the sales industry, and one of the markers of how successful you can be is your ability to communicate with and appeal to the widest variety of people as is possible. You can get really good at this because one of the secrets is to understand how God has wired different people. Today, when we talk about this, we're going to be actually looking at people through the personality profile disc assessment. And there's lots of different assessments, but this one is really straightforward, and I find it helpful to start to get really good at appealing to a wider variety of people. DISC, D-I-S-C, 4 distinct personality types. So in learning about each of these types of people, I believe that you can become more effective in your business. Now, it's important to say that very few people are just one of these personality types, but everyone tends to have some stronger, like maybe they're a high D, or they have D and S, or something like that. So either one or a combination of some. But if you can identify what makes these people tick, then you're going to be able to conduct your business better. So that's how we're going to talk about it today. The first letter, D, stands for dominance. Ds are about 10% of the population, and they're characterized by being very results-oriented, very bottom line, extremely confident. They see the big picture. They tend to be pretty straightforward and blunt, loves challenges, straight to the point. They're really motivated by winning, competition, success, and extremely action-oriented. They're the get things done kind of people. They're motivated by winning, competition, success, right? So what are some of the downfalls or some of the weaknesses of people that have a high D personality? They seem to lack concern for other people. It's not true all the time, but they seem to because of their bluntness and straightforward way of communicating. Also, usually impatient, sometimes skeptical. They really value when they're talking to somebody who sounds competent, that's action-oriented, that's really into results. And personal freedom and a life of challenges is really important to a D. Very independent people. What's hard for a person with a high D personality? It's really, really hard for them to show patience and sensitivity toward others, quite frankly. To get into details is extremely difficult for a person with a high D personality, and allowing other people to kind of process through things or deliberate in order to make a decision is annoying for a high D. It's hard for them because they're very quick to make a decision and can't always understand why somebody else isn't like that as well. So when you're communicating with the D, what's important to know? Let's say you've kind of discovered you're dealing with somebody who's a high D personality. The best way to communicate with a D is to gather your thoughts first so that you can use as few words as possible to get to that bottom line. It's important to avoid just generalizations, but don't repeat yourself. Focus on solutions. If you go to a high D with a problem, you should have some suggestions on solutions, and avoid really long presentations. Again, get to the point. You will want to let Ds ask questions for sure. A D personality, one of their biggest fears is to be taken advantage of. So that's really important to know. They talk quickly because they think quickly. They're likely to interrupt you once you get started. They don't mean to be rude, but that's just the way their brain works. They think they've already figured out how you're going to finish your sentence, which makes them interrupt often. Decision-making is really comfortable for Ds. So that's good in sales. They tend to be leaders, entrepreneurs, and they have a hard time respecting people who are really slow to make decisions. That's important to know as well. Ds love checklists, and they measure productivity on how much they've gotten done. And again, remember, they love challenges. So let's give some examples of how you might approach a high D when you want them to take action. First of all, when you're thinking of a sales presentation or you're thinking about how you're going to appeal to that person, you may want to ask this question: would you like me to go through my whole presentation with you, or do you just want to ask me some questions and let me answer them? The reason why that's really effective is because a high D really already knows the information they want. They may even have already made the decision to take an action, but need a couple of facts or some bottom line information in order to just finish the conversation. So sometimes by insisting on going through like your whole sales presentation the way you normally do can really annoy a D. Hence, you're talking to a high D when they sound really sure of themselves all the time, when they are asking you questions like, okay, tell me the steps to get this done. A really good idea is to ask questions ahead of time of the D. What do you want me to be prepared with, so that I can answer your questions well, so that you can feel confident? Because when you're across from a D, sometimes they're so confident and bold that you may feel a little intimidated if that's not something that's comfortable for you. So let's do a little bit of a summary here. Dominance. I'm 10% of the population. Straight to the point, takes action, big picture, loves challenges, results oriented. I'm motivated by winning, competition, and success. I may be limited by lack of concern for others, being impatient, being skeptical. When communicating with me, give me the bottom line. Be brief. Focus on solutions. Okay, so let's move on to the next personality type. I, influence. People who are high I, and they have an emphasis on influencing and persuading others. They're super open. They value relationships at a very high level. They're about 25%. They represent about 25% of the population. Very enthusiastic, super optimistic, collaborative, because they love people so much they need to be around them. That's how they gain their energy. They don't like to be ignored because they love people. And they're described as really convincing, magnetic, enthusiastic, warm. They're super trusting. And again, they're optimistic. I's are like these in that they do take action, but they generally want to take action with people. They don't want to do it alone. They're not quite as independent for sure. They're very motivated by social recognition and group activities and great relationships. They are limited by being somewhat impulsive, disorganized, and a lack of follow through. So what's really hard for somebody who is a high I is to research facts. They're very much like D's in that way, in that they're not really into facts. But speaking directly is really hard for an influencer, and candidly. Staying focused is really hard, and again, follow through. When you're communicating with an I, you want to make sure that you're sharing experiences, right? Very relational, and allow them time to ask lots of questions and to definitely talk. You're going to focus on positive things and avoid overloading details. Also, they really don't like to be interrupted. They fear not being liked. That's because they place so much emphasis on people that they fear not being liked. They love to be entertained. They love people more than tasks, for sure. If you want a great party or social event, you better make sure a high I is in attendance or your party's going to stink, right? So now that we've talked a little bit about D and I, let's talk about how when you're communicating, let's say a D and an I are communicating with each other. The good news is they both are confident and outgoing in their, verbally and with the way that they communicate, not very reserved at all. But you can imagine there might be a problem because a D tends to interrupt, remember that? And an I hates to be interrupted. So if you have a D and an I talking with each other, there might be some dissonance there if there's no awareness of the different tendencies a D and an I have. So if I'm a high D And if I have a client or somebody who is a high I, I need to be aware, first of all, to let them tell stories. I need to be patient, which is not my best quality, right? And I need to refrain from interrupting them. Let them say their whole statement, or I may make them feel like they're not valued. If I'm a high I and I'm talking to a D and I want to appeal to them, I may need to change a little bit of, having so many words, because I might lose that person who's a high D, just from the sheer volume of words. So as you learn about an I, you know that their strengths is if you can make them feel socially recognized and important, and that you care about them and their relationship, that can be really helpful when you're dealing with high I. Let's do a little bit of a summary about I. Influence. I'm 25% of the population. I'm enthusiastic, optimistic, and magnetic, collaborative, and friendly. I love people. I'm motivated by social recognition, group activities, relationships. I'm limited by being impulsive, being disorganized, and trying to stay focused. No follow through either. When talking with me, and I love it, tell me about yourself. Let me ask lots of questions. Be positive. Avoid too many details and don't interrupt. Okay, on to S. So S stands for steadiness. By far, steadiness represents the largest portion of our population. 40% of our population has a majority of S in them. So it's very, very important to understand this personality type and the characteristics along with that. Not that it's unimportant to learn about the rest of them, but you know what I mean. They're just a larger portion of the population. So they're characterized by being cooperative, really sincere, and super dependable. They do not like to be rushed. They have generally a very calm demeanor and approach to things. And they tend to be in supportive types of roles because they just love to support other people, love to please people. That's extremely important to them. S's are motivated very much like I's by cooperation. But their role about cooperation in people is because they want to help. They want to help other people. They love sincere appreciation. Stability is super important for an S. Calm, patient, predictable, deliberate, consistent are all qualities of a high S. They're limited because they tend to have a little bit of a hard time being decisive, primarily because they want to make sure that they're pleasing people. So they don't want their decisions to negatively impact the way people look at them. Another limitation is they tend to be overly accommodating for the same reason, and they really want to avoid change. It's that stability factor that makes them so comfortable. It's very hard for an S to quickly adapt to change, and especially if there are unclear expectations. Multitasking isn't so great for an S. Promoting themselves, being in the limelight is super uncomfortable for them. And confronting others, confront is like a bad word a lot of times to an S. When you're communicating with an S, there are some really important things to keep in mind. You want to be personable and amiable. Express your interests in them, kind of like an I, and be really, really clear on what you expect from them so that they know where they stand. Take the time to clarify whatever it is that you're trying to talk about with that person. Make sure that they feel comfortable and that they understand. Be polite. Don't be too confrontational or aggressive, and certainly not rude. That really puts an S off. It puts everybody off, but especially an S. Their biggest fear is change. Super, super scary. They really appreciate it if you let them know in advance what's coming so that they can prepare in whatever way they deem necessary. Give them time to process and make decisions. And remember, they care very, very much about people. So affirmation for an S is really necessary. So let's talk about the interaction, let's say, between an S and an I. There's going to be some comfortable things there because they both care very much about people. So that's going to make it easier mesh of communication. What might be a little dissonant is the I likes to be in the limelight and the S doesn't. So if the I inadvertently thinks the S wants to be in the limelight, they can make them feel really uncomfortable. Like, hey, we're at karaoke. The S is happy to sit there and watch, and it gets just as much joy out of being part of the crowd as the I does being in front of the crowd. So you got to keep that in mind. Let's say an S and a D. There's some dissonance there for sure. A D wants to come in and get crap done, right? An S wants a little bit more calmness and stability. So the S and the D can really bump heads. In fact, we Ds tend to bump heads with lots of people if we're not careful. But for example, I have a wonderful friend who's a high S. And if I want to go to lunch with her and I want her to really choose the place, I'm literally going to ask her in the morning, hey, listen, I'd really like to take you to lunch. And I really want you to decide where to go. I promise any place that you choose, I'm going to be happy with. And it's important for me that you choose today. And so they have all morning to kind of decide what they want to do. And then you need to reassure them. Yep. Did you choose? Oh, that sounds great. And at the end of lunch, you probably want to affirm that they made a really good decision. So I hope you're starting to see how you can cater to different personality types to help them feel valued and to appeal to them and to communicate that with them in the very best way. So let's do a summary of steadiness. Steadiness. I'm 40% of the population. Don't like to be rushed. I like to please others, love stability and security, calm, patient, and predictable. I'm loyal. I'm motivated by cooperation, sincere appreciation, helping others. I'm limited by being indecisive, overly accommodating, avoiding change. When you communicate with me, be personable. Take your time. Give me clear expectations. Don't be too confrontational, aggressive, or rude. Okay, we're at the last one, conscientiousness, the C's. C's are characterized by quality, accuracy, emphasis on both of these. They like expertise and competency, very independent, much like the D's. And they value objective reasoning. They want lots and lots of details. Hates being wrong, and rarely is, by the way, if you've given them time to research. They're motivated by gaining knowledge, showing expertise, producing quality work. They value accuracy, stability, much like the S, and challenges assumptions, because remember, they're based on facts. So if they hear somebody trying to assume something, they are in their mind determining that person just didn't do the research. So they're incompetent, right? They're very careful and cautious for sure. Systematic, diplomatic, accurate, tactful, and they're limited by, they have a tendency to be over-critical and over-analytic. So they do isolate themselves as well, not so social, really usually introverted. It's hard for a high C to delegate tasks because they think they can do it better than anyone else. And sometimes it's true, right? Compromising for the good of the team is really hard for a C because that means they have to bend the way that they think. Joining in social events, not so much. And also celebrations for them, not really comfortable. Making quick decisions, just like the S, is very uncomfortable for a high C. When you communicate with a high C, you really want to focus on facts and details. You want to minimize pep talk, when you motivate everybody and you're no, they just want the facts. Get down to the facts. Emotional language is annoying for a C, generally speaking. And you want to be patient, persistent, and diplomatic. The biggest fears of a high C would be to be considered sloppy or incompetent, for sure. Not following protocol for a C is a sign of wildness, or like you're a loose cannon. So people like a high I who flies by the seat of their pants is hard for a high C. They tend to warm to people really slowly. So you got to be patient in that way and be on time. If you're not on time with a high C, you're already in like Loserville, right? So let's imagine a high C and an S. There's some similarities there. They tend to be kind of background people, not the limelight, and they're both resistant to change. So that is very similar. You can imagine that a high D and a high I would be really dissonant with a high C both ways. C's are annoyed because of the energy and maybe the emotional language that comes from an I, or the jump right in that a D has, because they got to be incompetent if they didn't do all the research, right? If you have a client who's a high C, you better not come and just make a statement without bringing all the facts to back it up, or they're just not going to be impressed by you. Try to research what it is that they are really looking for so that you can take the time to have the answers for them or point them in the direction for the answers, so you can seem prepared and ready, which will make you competent in the eyes of a C. So let's do a little bit of a summary about a C before we wrap this up with some closing statements. Conscientiousness. I'm 25% of the population. Objective reasoning, independent, wants details, doesn't like being wrong. I research everything. I'm motivated by gaining knowledge, showing expertise, producing quality work. I limit myself by being overly critical, overanalyzing, isolating myself, being slow to decide. When communicating with me, focus on the facts. Minimize emotional language or dramatics. Be patient, persistent, and diplomatic. So let's end our discussion today with a bit of an illustration, because all 4 personality types have wonderful qualities, and God intends us to bring each other in on our strengths and to understand each other so that we can communicate better. So let's say you had a project that wanted to be done, there's value in every single personality type to have something done really, really well. So for example, the reason why you want D's involved in a project, they're going to take action. They have lots of ideas. The big picture is really easy to see. They're going to be willing to set high challenges, set the bar high, and go out there and take massive action to get things done. But a D needs to be careful that they don't bulldoze over every other personality type, therefore not gaining their cooperation. You have to make sure that you make each of those people in your group feel valued, because they are valuable. So for example, you got to have some eyes in on your project. Not only are they going to keep things a little lighter, and they're relational, so they're going to be interested in having everybody having fun and getting along. Plus, you definitely want them there to celebrate the results. They'll be the celebrators. They'll arrange all of that. Your S's are super, super important because they're your follow through. Remember, D's and I's, they might take action, but they're either unfocused or they lack follow through, or they skip details. And an S will push people through process and procedure and bring that calm, consistent mannerisms and things like that to your group to ensure that it really actually gets done. And you have to have your C's, because your C's are going to force your D's and your I's to slow down, consider the details, make sure that we aren't leaving out something super important. They'll set the deadlines, make sure that you don't skip anything. So when you have D, I, S, C all working together with their God-given strengths, you're going to create something far better than any one personality type can offer alone. And remember, as salespeople, you will be exposed to all 4 of these different personality types in some combination. And if you can get really good about curbing your own tendencies for the sake of your clients based on their personality, and also bringing out other ways of communicating that might not be natural to you, for the sake of your clients, they're going to walk away from that transaction with you feeling validated and trusting you and having a great experience. So if you'd like to have some more information about trainings that we offer, or you'd like to jump on a call to talk specifically about this information, feel free to contact me. That's my cell phone number and my email address. So you can contact me at any time there. Then, if you are interested in listening to any of our podcasts or live Facebook streams, you can check us out on Facebook. We have a lot to offer, and we want to help you and your business grow. God bless you guys, and thanks for listening.